Hey, I'm Greg Bosson, CPA and president of QuickBooks Made Easy for Nonprofits. And today is November the 2nd, 2021, which means, at least in Atlanta and in some other places, it was an election day and I actually voted. Okay. And it was secure. That's what this button is that I voted. It actually says I secured my vote because, everybody's really freaked out about that now. It's another story. Anyway, the more important thing at this moment, anyway, is that it is time for the monthly e-newsletter, Quick Tips, where we teach you something to help make your life a little bit easier in Quickity Books. Okay. And this tip is specifically geared for people that have reimbursement-based grants. And it has to do with using a feature in QuickBooks that a lot of people try to use but don't really understand it, and that is the billable feature. You see, when you enter an expense, and by the way, this is for people using QuickBooks Desktop. I have another recording for those using online. But anyway, when you enter an expense, and I'll just fill one out right now. Let's see, we'll make this $12,000 and we'll put it to equipment rental. If you have a, let's see, yeah, if you have a grantor that could be a government, a lot of times it is, sometimes it's a foundation, that says, okay, we're granting you money, but it's on a reimbursement base. You have to spend the money first, you send us a report or an invoice or whatever. This is what you spent, and then we'll reimburse you. Okay. So if you have that sort of situation, what's really neat is, first of all, you can put the grant in the customer job field. Okay. Now if you don't know this, I'm assuming you already know this, but if you don't, whenever you want to track restricted grants, you use the customer job field, not the class field, but the customer job field. I have a whole webinar on this. But anyway, uh, that's something that I'm hoping you already know, but if you don't, now you do. The thing I really want to focus on is this billable feature, because this thing pops up and people always ask me, what is it and can it work for me? Well, it can if you understand how to use it, and it can help you with your reimbursed grants. So what happens is, if this billable thing pops up and you check this, okay, because people are always like, do I check it? Do I uncheck it? What do I do? If you leave this checked, and I would leave it checked for reimbursement-based grant, a couple things happen. One, you can get a report that shows you all of your expenses that you have tagged as being reimbursable from this grant. But the other thing you can do is, when it's time to request reimbursement, I know you're going to create your little invoice or fill out the report that the grantor gave you, but you can also create a corresponding invoice directly in QuickBooks that'll automatically pull all these expenses over. Okay? You can use it to create your other invoice that you actually give to the grantor. But then the amount of money that you request from the grantor will automatically be entered in QuickBooks on an invoice, so your grants receivable will be right in QuickBooks. Pretty cool, huh? So, but in order to do that, you got to check this box. And now I need to show you how this works and why it's kind of messy and screwed up and how to get around it. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and check this box. You always use the class feature to point it to a program, admin, or fundraising. That's what you're supposed to do with all your expenses. And I'm using a check window, but this billable feature appears in the enter bills window as well, right there. And it also appears in the enter credit card charges window. So, it's wherever you enter expenses. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to save this transaction. I'm going to go ahead and leave it up on the window. All right. So now I'm going to pull up a little P&L. Let me pull up a little P&L. I already have it pulled up. It's a tiny one, only just for a couple days. But as you can see, here's my little equipment rental that I entered for $12,000. Okay. There it is right there showing on the report. Now, because I marked this as billable in QuickBooks Desktop, if I go to reports and I go to jobs, time, and mileage, and I go to unbilled costs by job, it's going to give me a list of all of my expenses that I've marked as billable. All right. And it looks like I have two of them. Well, this one doesn't seem to have a dollar amount in it, but here's my $12,000 right here. Okay. So, you know what? Let's go to this other one here. Yeah, I didn't put a dollar amount. Let's go ahead and put a dollar amount for these, and then I'll I'll point this to equipment rental also. I hate having weird stuff. So, oh, got to point it to a class. We'll put this to admin. Okay, cool. So there, as you can see, it's giving me a list of all the expenses. Now, let's say it's the end of the month, whatever, it's time to request reimbursement. This report, again, will give you what you need to request reimbursement for. But additionally, another advantage of checking the billable feature is you can create a corresponding invoice in QuickBooks, okay, that matches your request for reimbursement. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to go to Customers, and even if you've never done an invoice before in your life, it's this easy. I'm going to go Create Invoices. When I put the name of the grant in there, a window pops up saying, wait a second, you have outstanding time and cost to add to the invoice. Basically saying, hey, you've pointed things to this grant and you've marked it as billable, so you must want to maybe put it on an invoice. If I click OK, it's going to give me under expenses, it's going to give me everything that I've marked as billable. I'm going to check them off. Okay, I don't need to mark it up any. And I'm going to click OK, and it's going to place it on the invoice. Now I got an invoice for $12,100. Now I probably wouldn't send this invoice because, again, the funder probably has their own invoice, but I'm going to go ahead and save this, and now QuickBooks will have a receivable that matches the amount of money that I'm requesting reimbursement for. Sounds like a good thing. Now I'm about to show you what's screwy with it. Okay, I'm going to make this P&L appear. Now when I save this, where do I want that 12,100 to go? Well, I probably want it to go in income somewhere, maybe to foundation grants, okay? Because it's foundation. When I click Save and Close, well, actually, I'll just save it and leave the window open. I have to uncheck email later, okay? Look what happened over here. It didn't show up as revenue, and instead it netted against the expense. This is, if you've seen this before, you've probably gotten excited now because somebody's going to explain to you what's going on. It's really weird, okay? So I'm going to double click on this to see what happened. What it did is it basically, here's the bill and the check, it recorded the revenue that you entered on that invoice. It recorded the revenue because when you enter an invoice, it creates revenue and increases accounts receivable or grants receivable. But it pointed the revenue to the same account that the expense went to. Now, why the heck did it do that? Well, because if you look at this, this is a check I entered. How does it know what revenue account to go to? It doesn't. So it points it to the same account that the expense went to. Well, that's not going to work. Now, not only do I not see my foundation grant revenue, but I don't see the expenses either. It nets them together. So it's like I'm not really seeing any activity on my P&L, okay? Well, if you don't like that, you can change it, okay? So I'm going to go over here to my chart of accounts, not my chart of accounts. I'm going to go to Edit, Preferences. These are little features you can turn on and off. And I'm going to go down to the last category that says Time and Expenses. Might have to scroll down there. There it is, Time and Expenses. Company Preferences. You see this thing that says Track Reimbursed Expenses as Income? I'm going to check that box. And now when I save this, instead of it showing as a negative expense when I create the invoice, the income is going to go to a revenue, and now the expense will appear again. The question is, what revenue account is it going to go to? Okay, well, it's going to go to the revenue account that you assign it to. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and click OK. And so far it hasn't changed, but the reason why is because I've got to go to my chart of accounts list. Let me go to my chart of accounts list. After I turn that preference on, you're going to see under equipment rental, go ahead and edit this, you're going to see a field that says track reimbursed expenses in income account, and then it's blank. This is where you tell it what income account to go to. You don't even get this choice until you turn that preference on I just turned on. But now you can check the box and you can point it to an income account. Now, I'm going to point it to just foundation grants. Okay. So I'm going to click Save and Close. I'm going to go back over to the report. I'm going to refresh the report and look what it did. Now the expense is there again and the revenue is up here with some other foundation grant revenue. So now I'm seeing it the way that I'd want to see it. I'll double click and you can see there's the 12,000 and the 100 right there. Okay. Now there's a little bit more that I need to teach you. Okay. The thing about this is now I've pointed equipment rental. I pointed that to, well, I don't know why it's not there, but I pointed equipment rental to that foundation thing, okay? But not all of my grant expenses are pointed to the same expense account. Some of it may go to postage, some of it may go to supplies, some of it may go to rent. So I got to point the others. So that's one thing that's kind of weird. So I'm going to go over here to, I don't know, we'll go to postage expense. And I'm going to edit this. And now you'll see, oh, I can point this one. So as you can tell, you're going to have to go to each expense account and point it to an income account in case it's ever involved in a reimbursable grant. So I'm going to go ahead and click this, and I'm going to point it to this foundation grants account. I'm going to go to save, and then you'll get this warning. This income account is already being used as a reimbursable income account. It can only be used by one expense account. Please choose another income account. Basically, what they're saying is I can't point multiple expense accounts to the same income account for reimbursed expenses. Now, I think that's stupid, but nevertheless, it's a problem, but that's what we're dealing with here in QuickBooks Desktop land. So, QuickBooks Online, it's not like that, but in QuickBooks Desktop, it is. So, how do you get around it? So, what I've done, I'm going to go to my chart of accounts list. I'm like, fine, you need to have a separate income account to point each expense to? Fine. So what I've done is under foundation grants, I've created sub-accounts for each one of my expenses. Now you might say, Greg, this is stupid. I've got 40 expense accounts. Now I have 40 income accounts. That seems like a lot of trouble to go through, but it's the only way to make this feature work really well. And I mean, it's pretty easy to do to create one. Okay, just go here to account, click new, and we'll make this an income account. And I will make it a sub account of foundation, and then I'll just name it whatever the name is of the expense account. So let's say I'm creating one for postage and delivery. Now, I have an expense account by that same name, so I want to change the name here. So I'm going to put an XXX in front of it in parentheses. Another reason why I'm doing it is because I don't want anybody to actually ever use this. I don't want anybody to accidentally point a literal expense to this reimbursement income account. I only want the system to use it. I don't want to use it. So I want to put this X so it's not accidentally used. Okay. So I've already kind of done that here. Here it is right here. And the other thing is I can inactivate it, okay, so that it won't even show up in a drop-down list anymore. In other words, right now, even though it's XXX, if I go down here and I start typing postage, well, it doesn't appear. But if I just start looking at a drop-down list, you'll see it here, and somebody might accidentally put it, use it. I don't want anybody to use it directly. I just want the system to use it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to inactivate these two. So I'm going to make inactive, and that hides it from view. It just means that no one can see it anymore. It can still be used. It's just nobody can see it anymore. Okay. So that when I'm entering an expense, now I click on the drop down and you're not going to see it anywhere. Okay. But the system can still use it. I think that's pretty cool. And that, my friends, is it for the billable feature. Now, if you feel like you like the way I teach and you're thinking, you know what, I think I could learn more, I think I need to learn more, come to our 3-day webinar series. And it is, I think I have it pulled up on the screen here. There it is. I'll move it over here for you. So if you go to QuickBooks Made Easy and you go to webinars, next week we have a 3-day webinar series coming up. It's 2.5 hours a day. It's for 3 days, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday of next week. It's real fun. There's going to be drugs. There's going to be prizes. There'll be naked people, maybe. Anyway, so we'll take breaks. Don't worry. It's not, the full 2.5 hours each day. We'll take breaks. This is what's in day 1, day 2, day 3. It's awesome. Normally costs $249. Which I think is a pretty good price. But if you belong to one of your state associations and nonprofits, we partner with about 30 of them. You can probably get a discount. But sign up now, and hopefully you will come, and I will see you next week where we can learn a lot more about Quickity books. All right. Catch you later.